Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the She's Got GAWL podcast. I am Ebony Phillips, your host, and we are in the midst of our Trailblazer series. And let me tell you what we're calling it. It is called She Was the First, Conversations with Women Trailblazers. And have I got a treat for y'all tonight. When I tell y'all who's here, you're going to be like, well, how in the world did she pull that off? But before we get started, I want to give a little bit of context to our conversation. As we start to put programming together for the year, we sort of take the temperature of our audience and of our members, and they tell us kind of what it is they want to hear about and see and all the things. And one thing that kept coming up was there are some of us who have aspirations and we want to do different things than what we're doing now. And we want to make a climb and go higher than where we are. But we want to hear from people who've actually done it. Like, we don't want to think we know what to do or how to do, but we want to hear from people who've actually done it. And so that's how the She Was the First Conversations with Women Trailblazers really came about. And I am excited to tell you we have none other than Mayor Shirley Franklin tonight, y'all. I cannot believe she's here. Hello, Mayor Franklin.
Hello, how are you, Ebony? It's so good to be with you.
Thank you. So I'm excited and tickled pink if you can't tell. I want to dive into our conversation, but first, I think it's only fitting that I give you a proper introduction. So I want to just read some snippets from your bio. Shirley Clark Franklin is the former mayor of the city of Atlanta. She served from 2002 to 2010, and she held key executive positions in the administrations of Mayor Maynard Jackson and Mayor Andrew Young. Her executive experience includes 5 years with the Atlanta Committee for the Olympic Games and 10 years as executive chairman of Purpose-Built Communities. In these positions, she developed and led dozens of community engagement and community development programs, working directly with all stakeholders towards accomplishing their strategic goals. Her business experience includes service on the Delta Airlines Board of Directors and the Mueller Water Products Board of Directors. As a board member, she has served on the Compensation, Audit, and Environment, Health, and Safety Committees and participated in the strategic planning of the companies. 2 decades ago, she formed a small management and strategy consulting company, Clark Franklin and Associates Incorporated, and her clients have included nonprofit organizations, trade associations, and corporations primarily in Georgia. More recently, she joined as a partner in Authenticity Partners, a minority-owned and operated media planning and placement company. Her civic engagement spans 5 decades, primarily in Atlanta and Georgia. Last year, she served on the national board of the American Institute of Architects. Currently, she serves on the boards of the CDC Foundation, the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, Purpose-Built Communities Atlanta, National Association for Public Charter Schools, and the Volcker Alliance. Since her youth, she's been involved in nonpartisan and democratic politics, from community organizing to fundraising and political strategy. She served as the deputy campaign manager for the Andrew Young for Mayor campaign and as the chair of the transition teams for Mayor Maynard Jackson, Mayor Andrew Young, and Governor Roy Barnes. She held numerous Democratic National Committee positions, including as one of 4 vice chairs of the historic 2008 Democratic Party Convention and the co-chair of the DNC Platform Committee in 2016. During her term as mayor, she was known for her willingness to reach across the aisle to partner for the advancement of public policy to serve all Georgians and Americans. Please help me welcome Mayor Shirley Franklin. Hello again. Hello, hello.
Thank you. That was a lot. I didn't know you would use it all.
Well, and you've done so much. I'm like, gosh, when I just put your name in the search engine, it just brought up pages and pages and pages. I'm like, this is so impressive. This is really, really who our audience needs to hear from. I'm thrilled that you said yes to our invitation. And we're going to get right into what, the topic at hand is. But I have to tell everybody, when I was a City of Atlanta employee many, many years ago, is the time that you had become mayor of the city. And we were all just kind of in awe of it, right? And we were standing around like, okay, this is a woman mayor. How's this going to go? Because there hadn't been one for the city of Atlanta. And I should point out too, while I'm talking about this, because we get used to saying Mayor Franklin because you did so much and all the things, but to put a pin in it for folks. So my understanding is that Atlanta was incorporated in 1847, and you were Atlanta's 56th mayor. And so that means that mayors number 1 through 55 had been men, 1 through 55. And let's do, so 2000, I'm
No,
doing the math.
I think I was the 58th, wasn't I?
Okay, was it 58? So,
Yes.
so that's even more of a climb then, right? Because that means that 1 through 57 had been men. So it took even longer. Oh my goodness. That's about, what is that, 150 something years? See, this is what I want people to really, really understand. So we're used to saying Mayor Franklin, first woman mayor, city of Atlanta, and that also made you, by the way, the first woman mayor of a major southern city. And so back when I was a city of Atlanta employee, and we were all kind of like, well, what's this gonna be like? How's this woman mayor gonna be? And we were watching from the sidelines, and it was truly an honor to behold. I mean, there was a dignity about it. There was sort of like almost a regalness about it. But let me tell y'all something. So Mayor Franklin is extremely smart, right? And very, very like collegial, I'll say. But Mayor Franklin didn't take no mess, all right? And that quickly became known to everybody. And I think as women, sometimes we have to like let people know that although we're women, we can still kind of hold our own. But I wonder though, I really wonder, because I know you worked in Maynard Jackson's administration and you worked in Andrew Young's administration. Like, did you know from back and when you were in those administrations that you were going to run for mayor, or was there some other time? Because then I also hear people say such and such happened in my community. And so I knew at that point I had to just run for office and make some like, what happened? What happened for you? When did the moment come where you said, you know what, I'm going to run for mayor?
First of all, I never planned to run. I was very happy on the administrative side, in the executive positions. I worked for 2 great mayors, and frankly, I was in awe of them. Yeah. And so it was a little off-putting, and I was a little shy about the notion of running for office. Several people approached me, including Andrew Young and Maynard Jackson, and a handful of women, white and Black women, and asked me to consider it in 1998. Okay. So I had left office. I left office in 91 and worked for the Olympics in beginning 92 through 96. So I really wasn't thinking about going back into public life. Right. But Maynard and Andy approached me about running. Now, Andy spoke to me about it when I worked for him in the 80s. But I wasn't that interested. I thought that I really, my dream job was to be a community organizer of women statewide. Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to be a part of a women's movement for women's equity and rights and opportunities. Right. So I wasn't as interested in, but I will tell you that it was in 1998 when Andy and Maynard and a few other people, Cynthia Tucker, some of you might remember her as the editorial board, the editor of the newspaper, and a few others like that, Ingrid Saunders Jones, Juanita Barranco. These were all some women who approached me and suggested that I run for mayor. And the proposition the women gave me was, we need a woman, and you are qualified, and we need you to do it. And I was kind of stunned because all of them were very highly accomplished. Sure. But I think they were looking for someone at the time who knew a lot about government, because sometimes when you're the first, if you're not steeped in the subject matter, people don't take you seriously. And I had been in city government about 13 years, working with the 2 mayors and working across city departments. But the funny story is that I had an encounter with 2 men that I was involved with politically, and neither one of them would give me a straight answer. we were talking about a problem, and they had suggested they would help solve the problem, and neither one would give me a direct answer. And they pointed at each other as the reason why it didn't happen.
Oh.
So I was really annoyed that day.
Yeah.
To this day, they don't know who they are. I mean, I've never approached them.
Right.
And I called my son on the way home. I said, I'm going to run for mayor. He said, oh, no, why? And I said, well, these guys just don't take me seriously. So I think if I'm mayor, they will take me seriously, and they'll take more women seriously. So it was really more, I gave myself a dare.
Right.
The only other thing I want to share with the audience and you is that I had no idea whether I could win when I ran. I thought I could have a good showing,
right,
and would influence the debate. But because there had been two women who were very qualified and very smart, Myrtle Davis, as well as Emma Darnell, who had both run for mayor, neither of whom broke 5% of the vote. I knew that it was a very steep climb, and I wasn't sure that I could move from 5% to 50%, which 50% plus 1, which you need in the state of Georgia. So I would say I did step out on a limb. So it's like everything else that you want to do in your life. You have to take the risk,
right,
in order to have the opportunity sometimes.
So with that, were you ever afraid? Like, were you afraid, like, not of not winning, right? Because you kind of answered that. You knew you could make a good showing, but you weren't sure if you could win. But what if I win? Then what? Did you?
No, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid of winning.
Okay.
I mean, I knew that I'd been in government and been in a lot of places. I was very familiar with how government operates, what the mayor's goals were. I tell you what I was afraid of. I was afraid of the campaign. I wasn't afraid of the job. And I say that because I had never been on the front line. I had never been the person out front. I was always behind the scenes.
Right.
So my trick, and I'm not suggesting anyone else will do this, but my trick was I knew exactly what Andy would say and how he would say things, what his style was, not the subject matter. And then what Maynard's style, and they both had different campaign styles. So the truth of the matter is, Ebony, for about 3 or 4 months, one day I would be Andy and one day I'd be Maynard. I basically imitated them until I felt comfortable bringing my own voice.
Right.
One of the things I did that is often forgotten is I ran for 22 months full time. So I had time to really grow into being a candidate.
Right.
It wasn't a 4 or 5 month deal.
Right.
Because the review at the time, this doesn't exist anymore, but the women weren't able to break through. And I thought we needed to change the paradigm of how we ran, because there was no reason why Myrtle Davis or Emma did not do better, other than that they were running within the framework that had been set up for a group of people who were accepted as leaders, which women were not. So I ran full time from January of 99 until my election in November of 01, which is a really long time. And that brings me to the other point. I had to save my money so I could pay my bills and live my lifestyle while I was running. So I did a little bit of work, but not a whole lot during that time.
That's a long time, 22 months. Wow.
I know it's a very long time. And the other thing is people didn't know what to expect when they saw me.
Yeah.
So I got all this advice from people. So one friend told me I was too short. I needed to wear higher heels. Another friend told me, several people told me that I couldn't run for office and be blonde because I was denying my African heritage. So, and then another person told me, no, you do need to be blonde because when people meet you, they will remember having met you because your hair is so different. I mean, this was, this is 2 decades ago. None of this is valid today, except I tried to find the gaps and the openings where I could distinguish myself beyond what I knew about the job. In other words, I knew how to do the job.
Right.
What I didn't know is how to campaign and engage with people.
Yeah.
So sometimes people are not. Andy called me and said, don't change your hair. I said, what do you mean? He said, you can't wear it long one day and you got to stick with a hairstyle because people won't know who you are if you keep changing up. They want consistency. Because I'm trying to replace men in blue blazers and gray pants.
Right. I know a lot of us would always look for the flower.
I got it on today.
We would always look for the Shirley Franklin flower, and we just became accustomed to seeing that. So I think there is some validity to the points about just making sure that people know who you are and can recognize you. I was wondering, as you were talking about advice you got from people, certainly some of your mentors, Mayor Andrew Young and Maynard Jackson, but now you're at a place where you're, a mentor for folks. What would you advise our listeners? Like, we have people listening right now who are in the midst of either a career transition, a life transition, and a lot of them want to know what it is they should be considering. In other words, if I'm in position A right now, and now I want to be higher up on the org chart, let's say, or maybe our listeners are lawyers, they want to decide, you know what, I want to throw my hat in the political arena and I want to walk away for a time from the practice of law. What advice do you have? What types of considerations do you think people should make in those instances?
Well, I mean, there are a number. I can tell you the ones that I made, and I think they're still valid. Number one, how is this going to affect my family or my friends? Can I really put the time and energy into both running for office and then serving in a demanding job? Will they be stable enough so that I can still be, in my case, a mother or a friend, but I don't feel as if I'm abandoning them? So that for me was number one. And number two was how was it going to affect my parents who were alive at the time and were aging, and how was I going to feel if I wasn't able to assist them? So a lot of it had to do with my personal life. Yeah. Then the third was, can I afford to do this? Or am I going to be beholden to people who are helping me? In other words, do I need to change my lifestyle, modify my life so that I can afford this financially, so that I can be independent, so that I am not looking for any help from anybody else other than my family, the people that I'm close to. Right. And the fourth thing in this order was, what difference will it make if I run? Oh, that's deep. But that was the fourth. Yeah. Not whether I could do it, but is this going to be worth it? Because I believe there is value in the work, not whether it was a stepping stone or anything. I never expected to run for mayor and then run for another office. Right. That was not my interest. My interest has always been local government. Okay. And although I have thought about running for office since then, but my family said I was crazy, so I. But notice I went back to family. Right. And in other words, you've got to have your priorities, and you do make sacrifices. There is no question. You can't do everything all the time. Right. And I knew the job would be demanding because I'd worked for 2 mayors and I saw the demands on them. Right. So you had that experience. So what about the journey to becoming the first, do you think was the most rewarding? Like, it was, I'm sure, there were days that were heavy and long and all the things,
I can't even imagine campaigning, let alone campaigning for 20, like the campaign itself might have just broke me all the way down. And I have friends who have run successfully and, gotten elected to office. And I see like the grind. It is grueling. And I'm like, I'm just so not built for it. But when you get past that point, right? What is the most rewarding part about being the first woman mayor of the city of Atlanta, the first woman mayor of a major Southern city?
Well, I considered my most important contribution is to opening the door. Some people would say kicking it open, but opening the door, and that it was still open when I left. In other words, there was an opportunity for not other women to walk through.
Okay.
Even for young people to walk through, but more than the traditional leadership that we've seen for 150 plus years. So I wanted to leave basically a legacy that a woman not only could do the job, could do it well enough that people would consider other women and other people of color to follow me. Atlanta is unusual for cities like ourselves. It's not, I think Washington, D.C. and Atlanta are the two cities that have had successive mayors Black mayors going all the way back to the 1970s. And that is not to say that there are not many qualified people in lots of cities,
right?
But they've not been able to maintain political leadership.
So you spoke a minute ago about advice you got about wearing heels or not, keeping your hair a certain way and all the things. And I know that that was a long time ago, but it seems to me, and you can speak to this more than I can, that there are perceptions and focal points on women that men don't really have to deal with, like their hair or their hair color or, their height or all the things. Did you find that it was different, the journey for a woman, than how it is for men?
Well, the example I use all the time is when I was mayor. Every time they wrote about me in the newspaper while I was mayor, they had my age in parentheses after it. They don't do that for men.
Wow.
Or that people commented on my attire all the time.
Yeah.
They commented on my attire. But here's the bottom line to that. Those are minor problems compared to the opportunity you have in public life to influence not only your own community, but communities beyond your own and multiple generations. And that for me is what's rewarding.
Yeah.
It's rewarding for me that after I ran for office, that other women, there are far more women, Black women mayors across the country than there were when I ran. Right. I mean, there are dozens compared to when I ran. So not that I directly influenced that, but I think indirectly I had some influence on that, because as a first in the major Southern city, there was a lot of media attention to what we were doing and what we were thinking about. And during my administration, we used the media to inform and to share information that sometimes, doesn't get shared when you don't have access to mass media.
Right. And so as we think about all of that, because I'm going to say what other people say, kicking the door down. I think you did more than open it. I think you kicked it down. But I do like your other point is that you didn't just slam it shut behind you. You left it open for other people to come through, other women, very capable and qualified, and that speaks volumes. But what are you up to these days?
Well, let me just share one other thing. Whenever I had made a strong statement or what was considered a bold statement,
right,
the newspaper and people would say, "Oh, you're so feisty." I said, "I don't ever hear you characterizing a man who is being demonstrative in a way." I embraced it. I didn't let it stop me. I didn't try to get them to say, "Oh, you're really nice today." I mean, I'd go into meetings like, what in the heck are we doing here, right?
Right.
How did we get in this big hole that we can't seem to get out of? So today I'm doing much less. I'm still on a couple of boards. I work as the chair of the Center for Civil and Human Rights, and I'm really pleased that we are expanding our programs around the issues of race, diversity, planning and training related to how race impacts law enforcement and policing and community policing. I'm also serving on a manufacturing board, which is very fascinating to me because there are many people in America who are still making very low wages, doing very hard work. Yeah. And being in a position to talk about that and look at how do you transform industries so that you may not be able to make the work easy, but you can make it safer, right? And people can support themselves and their families. I'm doing that. I'm a gardener, so I'm praying for rain today. I have a vegetable garden, and I spend a lot of time with family. I love international travel. Mm-hmm. My standard answer is I do as little as possible.
Well, you've earned the right. You have earned the right. What kind of vegetables do you grow in your garden?
Well, right now I have kale, collards, and cabbage, all sorts of herbs, eggplant, and all sorts of peppers. But in my, I'm hoping to have some onions. I had the best onions in the spring. Wonderful yellow onions. But that's kind of my therapy. And everyone on this call knows this. And I am encouraging you. Your physical and mental and spiritual well-being influences the impact you can have on other people. If you are not solid, rock solid, and working on that, then it's very, very hard you'll be of sound mind and you're all very smart, but you also need to just be settled so that we can we need transformation in America. We don't need just new ideas. We need transformational ideas so that we don't have to revisit everything that we've accomplished in the last 50 years.
Right. Wow, that's a mouthful. Transformation. I love that. I absolutely love that. I am so thrilled, and we're going to wrap. I was just thinking, though, one of my questions was going to be something little known about you that people probably don't know. And I think you kind of hit it with the gardening and all the things. And Mayor Franklin is crafty. I'll just say that. I was at a wedding where she did some of the whatnots with her own hands. I know y'all don't believe that, but it's absolutely true. And they were absolutely gorgeous. So you are a woman of many talents. I am thrilled that you came by. Our audience, like I promised, y'all were in for a treat tonight. There are so many nuggets packed in this little short segment that you're going to want to listen to it again and again. I am thankful for the opportunity to spend time with you and to know that not only did you not stop when you became the first, it kind of sounds like in reading your bio, you picked up some extra steam somewhere along the way and serving on all the boards and things. So thank you so much for stopping by. This is the latest installment of the Trailblazer series. We call it Conversations with Women Trailblazers. We're talking to women who were the first. I still call her Mayor Franklin. She's going to always be Madam Mayor to me, even though I know it's been a while back. And this is brought to you by the Georgia Association for Women Lawyers. We would love to have you. Maybe you want to know more about the organization. You're not kind of sure what we're about. Feel free to go to www.gawl.org, and we're spelling that GAWL. If you want to join, we make it really easy. There's a join or renew button right there on the homepage. Mayor Franklin, thank you once again. I hope that we haven't kept you too long. I know you're still very, very busy, even though you're saying you're doing as little as possible. You're still doing a lot.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
And until next time, be transformational.